Dad gave our family business to my lazy brother. He messed up, almost causing a customer to die, and now Dad's begging me to come back and fix it. I, Astrid, 28, threw my dad a retirement party somewhat over a month ago. Haviwang maintained our family restaurant for practically his whole life. He was retiring from management, now at about 62. He told us he was too exhausted to continue and wanted the company to be passed on to the next generation. Since I had given this restaurant the past 5 years of my life, I very mistakenly assumed he meant me. My family runs 2 other restaurants across the city in addition to an Italian franchise. My uncle runs one. The other is Super VY, said by his daughter, but the most often used branch is ours, and my father is the official owner. For background, my uncle is not really the biological brother of Dad. This all began when my grandfather built his first restaurant, where business first started. Actually, our property is the original one. The restaurant my grandfather opened with my grandmother operated for numerous years until my father assumed control. Then, he grew the company by adding 2 other eateries at separate sites. My uncle came in at that point when we first launched the second restaurant. He left his employment and began working there. His daughter took charge of that place. Since the company has always stayed within the family, when Dad announced his retirement a few weeks before I hosted the celebration, I naturally anticipated him to turn it over to me. Since my uncle wanted to retire in a few years anyway, and he is almost the same age as my father, maybe a few years younger, he was not a competitor for the Given my 5-year dedication to the first restaurant, his daughter's 2 years of running the new store represents significantly less experience than I have. I abandoned my corporate job to work with my father ever since I was 23. I wanted to one day inherit the family firm and carry it to unprecedented success. Since I was the strongest applicant to inherit the company, I simply thought it would be me. My cousin was too young and unskilled to manage on her. My uncle was retiring soon. I knew then it would be me, though it was somewhat stupid of me not to demand a written agreement. My father never mentioned it straightforwardly. I assumed this was merely understood. Still, at the very last instant, my father threw me a curveball. He said on the day of his retirement celebration that my bratty younger brother would be inheriting the company. I have a younger brother and an elder brother, Blaine, 34. My older brother took the medical route. He is a surgeon and shows no enthusiasm for the restaurant industry. Ernie, 26, my younger brother, spends nothing at all and does nothing all day. Nobody in the family likes him. He is a brat of good-for-nothing value. Though I have no issue with his lack of talents or his lack of active VY tie all day, I absolutely find his attitude unacceptable. Though he has nothing to show for his life, he behaves as though he is the best and deserves every nice thing that comes his way. Mostly, it's my parents pushing this Beehive VY. Anytime Blaine and I try to talk about it, to shut us down and tell us he needs positive support so he could investigate job paths and avoid lifetime freeloading dependent on his parents. A few years ago, he graduated from community college. Since then, he has been let go from at least 5 different companies. He has a major attitude issue, so he can never make things stick. Though I'm not sure why he believes this, he feels he is on the same level as God personally and that nobody else can challenge him. We have to put up with it since we are family. But in the actual world, least of all his employers, none would accept this kind of Beehive VY. It is therefore not surprising that he has been let off from every position within a few months. He is not very talented in anything, and even the jobs he worked were guaranteed by my father VY his contact. For himself, Ernie truly cannot accomplish anything. He is simply a huge screw-up and has no idea about his future direction. Since he was let go from his last job 2 years ago, he has been lounging about our house, draining our parents for the past several years. The worst aspect is his lack of any guilt or regret over it. Our parents ignore him and let him live this way instead of intervening, which makes it quite annoying. It is unfair, particularly because Blaine and myself were continuously urging us to improve, not to seem unappreciative as Blaine and I are doing in our life, but it stinks to see them be so forgy VY-ing of Ernie. Still, I find him to be a somewhat spoiled brat. That absolutely bothers me. As children, we were all wonderful friends, but since high school things have changed, and I hardly get along with Ernie in the least. Everyone was rather surprised when my dad said Ernie would be inheriting the company, as he also lacks knowledge of the company or any notion of how things run. A few months before I organized the celebration, my father had announced his retirement. Everyone knew about it, family members as well as workers. Having been my father's right-hand man or lady in my case, I naturally anticipated to take over after he retired. I regret not having a decent discussion about it. I had taken it for granted, and perhaps that was the reason I came undone. I regarded this as denke that he was intending to leave me in control, even though he had expressed things about what he wanted to do once he retired a few times. I trusted my father, therefore I never thought of him maybe not vying the company. He had never offered me a justification not to, though he handled Ernie differently. That did not mean he mistreated me as an employee as well as a daughter. He was always incredibly caring and polite with me. Still, I decided to throw him a party when he announced his retirement. It never occurred to me that he hadn't revealed who his successor would be, since I simply knew it would be me. I was shocked on the day the party was scheduled when he chose to declare Ernie would be taking charge. Not only me, everyone at the party, from my mother herself to all the staff, was in shock. Everyone had assumed I would inherit the company, particularly because I had spent 5 years working at the restaurant, vying for perfection. Still, after all of my effort, Ernie was scheduled to inherit. I found none of it logical. It didn't really dawn on me until my father brought Ernie to his side, and he smugly declared he embraced his new post. Tears and total devastation drove me literally from the restaurant. 2 minutes later, my father trailed me outdoors. He wants to clarify that he made this very tough choice for specific reasons. Though I was unhappy, I chose to give him some time. Still, his motives were equally illogical and foolish as his choice. He knew it. He informed me that Ernie was really useless, and that affected his decision. Ernie had been sitting at home for the past 2 years while my father had been trying very hard to convince him to go out, hunt for a job, and engage in meaningful life active tai. Ernie took everything lightly. Now, my father reasoned that perhaps placing Ernie in a position requiring responsibility, such as running the restaurants, would compel him to rise up and improve his output. Ernie's heart wasn't in it, according to my father, because he was working for someone else and lacked an interest in his former employment. However, my father thought Ernie would have more of a stake and would be driven to be a better worker, since this would be his own business. And if not, at minimum, it would get him out of the home. Then, my father informed me that he still wanted me at the restaurant to perform exactly what I used to do, for Ernie to be always present for. He informed me Ernie would only be the nominal head. I would be the actual boss. This would, according to my father, inspire Ernie to become well. To me, that was quite nasty, knowing that I was quite capable of doing a far better job than Ernie. He expected me to be his shadow and assistant always. I am my own person. I'm not the babysitter for my brother. By then, I had worked hard enough to land the job my father had just given Ernie. I was still rather offended and not changed, even with the justification. I warned my dad he would lose me permanently, or he could undo his words and offer me the job he had just granted Ernie. I meant it. I had an ultimatum to offer him. Regretfully, we then engaged in a somewhat nasty argument. He informed me I wasn't thinking about my brother's future, and I was being selfish and irrational by not considering mine. He was also acting selfishly. I told him. We found ourselves fighting in this way. Vying nothing to say left. I cut him off after that. He refused to hand the job away from Ernie to someone who rightly earned it. I made up my mind not to return to the restaurant after I felt so degraded. My last day spent there was the day following the retirement celebration. 1 month after that, I still haven't gone back to the restaurant. Though I don't ask about the business, I have stayed in contact with my mother and Blaine. They know how things are going, but they also know it bothers me, and I don't want to talk about it. I therefore had no idea how the restaurant was performing until a few days ago. Nothing had truly altered on that front, as I stopped talking to my father following that argument and avoided Ernie anyhow. After vying the restaurant, I had also begun submitting applications for other employment. Like any other employee, I did get paid for my work there, and I have some money right now to cover temporary needs. I reasoned I could serve VYVE off of my funds till I discovered another active tie I wanted to engage in. I had even intended to travel next week, but right now I'm not sure, since I might have to return to the restaurant. The cause is, like I had anticipated, my brother messed up quite extensively. For some reason, my dad felt it would be a good idea to let him do anything he wanted without super VY shown to inspire confidence. He knew nothing about running a restaurant. Apparently, Ernie's emotions came before the family business and other pragmatic issues. Ernie had been cutting costs on components in addition to making a lot of careless and foolish financial mistakes from the beginning. Now it's causing them major difficulty. We offer a separate vegan menu and accommodate vegans so that none of non-vegan items come into touch with vegan meals in the kitchen for ethical reasons. We also set aside space specifically for vegan cuisine cooking, but in his infinite wisdom, Ernie closed that compartment to create room in the kitchen and began tampering vegan goods in order to save money. This would only be a matter of time before blowback occurred. 2 days ago, the unavoidable happened. Ernie had told staff members to use conventional dairy milk wherever they could avoid using the more unsafe, higher-priced soy milk. That overlooked the fact that some people are really allergic to dairy, not just vegan for fun. You might fairly predict what followed. A client ordered a milk-based dessert and expressly requested soy milk or another milk substitute to be used rather than ordinary dairy. Usually, one of our regular staff members would have used the alternative as asked and disregarded Ernie's ludicrous order. Regretfully, Ernie had chosen a fresh, inexperienced man and given him rigorous instructions to document anyone in the kitchen defying his direction. Ernie had discovered that the regular staff members were neglecting him since they were too quickly running out of substitute materials. He recruited this new guy as he wanted someone to spy for him. Sadly, this new employee ignored the customer's request and used conventional dairy milk for the dessert, following Ernie's directions exactly. He did a really poor job with it. Things went south rapidly, and the client experienced a strong allergic response. They now seem ready to sue the eatery. I know all of this since my dad contacted me in the evening a few days ago, the day the incident occurred, to let me know what happened. He looked to be panicking. He told me he had sacked Ernie right away since he had no idea what Ernie had been doing behind his back. He now asked me to return and rejoin him. He was presenting me with the job I had long sought. It was strange that my brother wanted me to come back now. Vying screwed up, just as I had predicted from the events of 1 month ago. I was still somewhat wounded and disturbed. Hence, on the phone, I laughed heartily at their predicament. I informed him I never would be returning under any conditions, just as he had embarrassed me at the retirement party. I said that should he truly want me to come back, I anticipated a public apology in front of the family and all the staff before handing me the job. I also wanted him to admit his errors and declare he had sacked Ernie. Given what happened during the party, I do not believe I was asking for my father's VY ors were just intolerable, and they had severely wounded me. Since now he was the one depending on me, I thought I was merely asking him to make things right, but my mother felt my requests were a bit excessive during the phone call. Even my father claimed he would not be doing any of it. The company was just as much mine as it was his, he informed me. He stated what I was asking of him was ridiculous and humiliating, even though he acknowledged he might have made a mistake. So am I the Ida for asking my father to publicly apologize if he wants me to rejoin the family company following the choice of my brother to inherit it over? Update 1. Hi everyone who took the time to comment on my first post and pro-VY to suggestions and encouragement. First, thank you very much for your concern on this. It truly means a lot to me. Regarding what I decided to do, I gave it some thought over a few days and concluded I would be returning to the company. Though I had to set aside my pride, the decision wasn't simple. At the end of the day, I have spent 5 years of my life. I want to be the one to drive the company ahead. Hence, nothing else can change that. Given that my dad won't be around permanently, I truly want to see it flourish rather than be closed down. As I have already said, Blaine has no interest in the restaurant, and Ernie OBVY usly lacks the skills or ability to run a company of that. If it has to be me, it merely does. My uncle and cousin, who oversee the other 2 branches, agreed I should return when I spoke with them. They think that the restaurant is properly mine. Hence, if my father's asking me to come back, I should put my past behind me and pursue what I love. To be honest, I would have preferred it if my father had publicly apologized, but I don't want to start a public celebration or gloat over Ernie being. That would not make me very happy as compared to the gratification the success of our restaurant will pro-VY to. I now understand I have to choose my battles and have opted to let this one pass for my own benefit. I chatted with Dad this morning. That was a highly CIVYL official exchange, though we will talk about them eventually. We decided to temporarily keep our history apart. For now, we pro-VY to the situation under current utmost attention to negotiate and get settlement. We have set up a meeting with our lawyers and the impacted consumer out of court, as she has been continuously tweeting about us on social media. She hasn't acquired much traction thus far, so we have been lucky. Nevertheless, this won't be the case for long. Hence, we must squish this before it becomes too huge. Update 2. After a lengthy period yesterday, I personally met my father. We met before a customer's meeting and one last time. We spoke with our lawyer on everything. Seeing him after so long was odd, since 5 years ago, I had seen him practically daily. Until I actually saw him, I had no idea how much I missed. Since our lawyer handled much of the conversation, we didn't interact much. We had to concentrate on that, but I could see there was still plenty we needed to talk about, though later we will have to deal with it. Now is not the proper time. Neither has he brought up anything regarding the event from a month ago, nor has he adequately apologized to me. Still, between us things were friendly and civil, which was a comfort, because this was our first in-person meeting following our major argument. Though I expected things to be strange, happily they were not. It had been some time, so my father requested me to come home to see my mom after the conference. Since the retirement party, I have not cited home. I had to turn down, though, since I had a prior obligation, that of attending an evening engagement party for a buddy. Fascinatingly, when I questioned my dad whether Ernie lived at home, he informed me he did not. I really wanted to know where Ernie was VYing and how it came about, but my dad didn't VY to any more information and made it plain he didn't want to talk about it. So I stopped there. Later on, I spoke with Blaine, and he informed me that Ernie had moved out a few days following his determination, but he was unsure whether our parents had requested him to leave or whether Ernie went on his own. Though things remain unknown, I intend to discuss it with my dad and work out what is happening. The client's meeting turned out better than anticipated. Given the situation, I had thought it would be difficult. What transpired was a major ethical transgression and never would have happened if my father or I had been in charge. The consumer, however, was reasonable. She said that the reason she had threatened to sue and complained so much on social media was that the manager had insisted that she was at fault rather than owning the issue. She had, he said, not mentioned her dairy allergy or asked for soy milk. The fact that she was blamed when she knew it was not her fault infuriated her the most. Once we knew the whole truth, we knew how much of a jerk Ernie had been. The client had refused to interact with us prior to this without her lawyer present. She had stated in her social media posts how the management of the restaurant treated her, but she had not gone into great detail since she feared defamation claims. She hadn't completely explained the matter because Ernie had got in touch with her, accusing her of lying, threatening to sue her. Until now, my dad and I had not known exactly what transpired. The waiter who ordered her sided with Ernie since he feared losing his employment. I don't blame him. Even if it means covering for their company, these folks need their jobs and are not ready to jeopardize them. Ernie, the new guy he hired, never turned on him. Hence, he also insisted that the server had not been told about the soy milk, which resulted in the ordinary dairy milk being. Then, Ernie and the new guy claimed the customer was trying to obtain money from us and lying to discredit the business. We told the client that Ernie, the guy in charge, had been let go, so right now we were running everything ourselves. Nothing like this will never ever happen again, we assured her. Fortunately, we reached an understanding. She agreed to remove her social media entries and let it go. Although we lost quite a lot of money in the process, at least we were able to tidy Ernie's mess. My dad and I can at last relax. Update 3. Hi. I have never been happier. I returned to the restaurant a month ago. To be honest, it took me some time to see how unhappy I had been absent from the workplace. Though I have problems with my father, I love this place. I'm going to soar to new heights as I wish. Regarding my father, we are working things out and have come quite far. Having spoken with my parents, we as a family have decided we should spend more time together. A few weeks back after returning to the restaurant, I had a lengthy conversation with my dad. He and my mother said they handled Blaine and me poorly. They wanted to develop Ernie to a point where he could compete with us and not feel inadequate. They knew he was the weakest link among us, but they raised his ego to an irrational level. In doing this, now Ernie sees the world of himself without really trying to get better. The day my father dismissed him, Ernie moved out and shut everyone off since his pride suffered. Later, my dad discovered Ernie is working at a nearby Deo games and VYing with a friend. At least he's trying to make it on his own and acting. It's good for him. Every weekend, my family gathers for dinner, including Blaine and his wife. Ernie has been in Ted multiple times. It would be disrespectful not to, but he has not responded. As asked, it scarcely counts to me since I have nothing to do with him anymore. Though I would like him in my life, I wish him the best. For me, hanging around with my family has been fantastic. I adore it. Since my father and I are at last returning to a state of normality, recently life has been very wonderful. I have no complaints. At last, I am creating something I believe in and doing what I love. I am back on good terms with my family, and I do not think I could ask for more. All a person truly needs to be happy is that. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.